Investigators, Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy answering this week's question. Luke has called me and asked, Mike, what's all the fuss about the AICLA membership in relation to the units of competency matching their modules from their training program at the ANZIIF? Well, Luke, to put it simply, I'll go through it so you can get an idea of what it's all about. And hopefully, Luke, that will answer all your questions, mate, and clear it all up for you. So firstly, we'll go through it by looking at the application for membership of AICLA. It's on the AICLA website, and you fill it in, blah, 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 blah. And it's got all their details they want to know about you for whatever it is you're applying for, membership, fellow, associate, whatever. So when you've filled it all out, you've got to declare as the applicant for membership of AICLA that you've read all these rules and you understand them, and that you've successfully completed within 6 months of joining the Institute's entrance examination criteria being Module LA501, Introduction to Loss Adjusting from the Australian New Zealand Institute of Insurance and Finance Diploma of Loss Adjusting. Now, there is no such thing in Australia in nationally recognised qualifications as the Australian New Zealand Institute of Insurance and Finance ANZIIF Diploma of Loss Adjusting. That does not exist. So they've asked you to agree to that, which doesn't exist, as an applicant. So what they're saying to you is you must complete this module LA501 from the ANZIIF Diploma of Loss Adjusting, which doesn't exist. There is no such thing. Okay. You may even receive emails from them, and it will say ANZIIF Diploma of Loss Adjusting enrolment in LA501. Again, the first one doesn't exist. They tell you that module LA5001-15, Introduction to Loss Adjusting, matches the nationally recognised unit from the... So going back to the original one that's in dispute, as Luke's question asked, what's the problem with it? Well, a nationally recognised qualification is made up of units of competency. When you study those units of competency and you're found to be competent, and here they are down here, they're the units of competency, they're core and elective ones that you might study to become a loss adjuster under the 1.5 version. That's what you would study and be awarded that qualification. Now, anyone claiming to have an accredited course that matches this must be able to prove that that course is accredited. Training.gov.au, as you can see up in the top left-hand corner, has a register of all accredited courses in Australia. There is no existing accredited course in Australia containing modules for loss adjusting. It is an offence to imply that non-accredited training is accredited training. Training providers' promotional material should be clearly define which courses are accredited and which are not. The application form to join AICLA says that you must study the module LA5001-15, Introduction to Loss Adjusting. Well, they can say whatever they like, but it does not match the requirements of Determined Client Requirements and Expectations, which is a nationally recognised elective unit. So when you put in an application to the ANZIIF to get recognition of prior learning, this is what they say over at AICLA. Their education partner, the Australian New Zealand Institute of Insurance and Finance, has a process called recognition of prior learning. Individual modules from the ANZIIF Diploma of Financial Services Loss Adjusting, the underlying professional qualification for loss adjusters, is what you can apply for RPL for. Now that qualification goes back to around about 2002. I haven't got it in front of me, but that doesn't exist anymore. Then they go on to say who will assess your application, a qualified assessor. appointed by the ANZ IIF matches the evidence against the requirements to prove competency and knowledge. It is the responsibility of the assessor to ensure validity, sufficiency, authenticity, and currency. So they're saying that Introduction to Loss Adjusting from the Australian and New Zealand Institute of Insurance and Finance, and it says in the blue square there at the end, the ANZ IIF Diploma of Loss Adjusting, which doesn't exist. There's only the FNS 5145 Diploma of Loss Adjusting, Luke, and that's it, mate. So that's the only one that exists. So what you see here really is a module from an accredited, claimed to be an accredited course, which isn't because it's not registered on training.gov.au. It is an offence to imply that non-accredited training is accredited training. Training providers' promotional material should clearly define which courses are accredited and which are not. Now, it doesn't say anything here about an accredited course called the ANZ IIF Diploma of Loss Adjusting. This screenshot from the ACLA annual report from 2013 and 14 demonstrates the first indication that there's a partnership arrangement between ACLA and the ANZ IIF to deliver training on their behalf in relation to loss. If you want to know if your ANZ IIF Diploma of Loss Adjusting, which isn't FNS 51415 Diploma of Loss Adjusting, as quoted by ACLA, you can look at ASQA's information page on what is an accredited course. That tells you all about that. And it tells you accredited courses are listed on training.gov.au. So, Luke, in further answer to your question, we'll look individually at the units of competency that you're talking about. So we've got the module from the ANZ IIF program, which is LA 501-15, Introduction to Loss Adjusting. That's on the left. The nationally recognised qualification unit that they claim it matches is this one. What you can see there on the left-hand side, they claim that module matches and is mapped to and will be in their training agreement that they have between the ANZ IIF and ACLA that is registered with ASQA. It has to be within 30 days of its inception, that agreement. Plus the training and assessment strategy will show how what's on the left is going to match with what's on the right. Now, this is without even looking at the training and assessment materials. This is just what they say that is in each one. So the one on the right, the nationally recognised qualification, says this unit describes the skills and knowledge required to establish a client's financial requirements and expectations in regard to financial investment products, includes quotations, claims and requests for services or amendments. It applies to individuals who may provide leadership, guidance and responsibility for work outcomes. No licensing, legislative or certification requirements apply to this unit at the time of publication. So that's what it says. And it has 3 elements of competency. The first one is develop awareness of client's situation. The second one is obtain relevant knowledge of client's financial position and risk profile. The third one is determine client's expectations and requirements in respect to financial market advice, which a loss adjuster is not allowed to give. And sorry, there's a fourth one, prepare and update necessary documentation. Now, all of that matches according to ACLA and the ANZ IIF's training agreement, which they have these things here in LA 501-15, Introduction to Loss Adjusting. Explain how the loss adjusting industry has evolved. Well, that wasn't on the right. Describe the current trends in loss adjusting industry in Australia and New Zealand. That wasn't on the right. Identify and explain typical role responsibilities of a loss adjuster. Nothing there mentioned about a loss adjuster on the right. Identify and describe key parties a loss adjuster may deal with. Well, according to here on the right, someone that wants to invest money. Describe the general insurance and legal knowledge a loss adjuster needs to possess. Nothing over here on the right-hand side mentioning loss adjuster. List the key elements of a loss adjuster's terms of engagement. Nothing about that on the right. Identify and explain the steps in the loss adjusting process. Nothing about that on the right. So the competency on the right, according to ACLA and the ANZIIF's training partnership agreement, the training and assessment strategy, these two things are mapped to fit and suit each other. So what you can see in blue on the left matches what's over here on the right, and it can be issued as a nationally recognised qualification mapped through a training and assessment strategy, overseen by an assessor and trainer who holds the qualification and knows what they're talking about. And that assessor and trainer is listed in the training and assessment strategy along with their qualifications. How do they match what's on the left with what's on the right? The regulator's view, well, wrong names there, forgivable. References to the AQTF flexible, they could probably sort that out with a bit of work with both parties to the agreement. Unmatched units, well, they can work on that. There's a whole new qualification out, a whole new set of units. Maybe they could move in and help them out there. They do that now. Claims of accreditation, well, that's a major non-compliance. No third-party agreement since 2014 and 3 years of sign-off by the CEO that the RTO was compliant. Well, that's a major non-compliance. Units matching modules, no. Accredited courses don't match nationally recognised qualifications unless they're documented, unless they're accredited and they are on training.gov.au. So that is a major non-compliance. No training and assessment strategy for reference to the assessors, what's in it, how they map across, that's a major non-compliance. Potentially over 3,000 graduate students from one unit affected after being directed there by ACLA. Now that's serious, a really serious non-compliance that could result, if they want to play hardball at the regulator, in those qualifications being taken off the people that studied them. Now if they only studied one unit, $900. If they studied 10 units, $9,000. This is a very serious matter. Do they follow through on this, given that this is two organisations that are the biggest in their industries, supported by the insurance industry in Australia? I don't know. You'd have to go and ask Lehman Brothers about that. I'm Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy.